Today's learning target is I can solve equations with variables on each side.
So as a reminder, let's talk about what it means to solve an equation, okay? So when we have an equation, we're saying one side is equal to another side, okay? In this case, we're saying 2 times some number is going to equal 6. So we want to figure out what does this number, this x, have to be in order to get these two sides to be equal. Okay, in this case, you probably are thinking, well, I know that. If I take 2 times 3, that would give me 6. And that we know this side is 6. So in this case, we know x is equal to 3. However, if I didn't know this, or I couldn't do this mentally, I could look at this and say this is 2 times x equals 6. And so to figure out what x would be, I would have to do the opposite of timesing, which is dividing by 2. I do it to both sides. That cancels out, and I get x equals 3. So let's solve a couple of equations that are a little more complex. Okay, now in this equation, if we look at this, we see 7 times d minus 13 is equal to 3 times d plus 7. Now I notice there's a variable on both sides, and whenever that's the case, I want to get rid of one of the variables, or move the variables to one side is maybe a better way to say it. Now I could do that. This is 3d. I could either take away 3d from both sides, or I could take away 7d from both sides. And if I look at this, I'm going to take away 3d from this, because that seems to me to be easier. So I'm going to take away 3d from both sides. And remember, I want to do it to both sides because I want to keep this equal. So if I do the same thing to both sides, it'll stay equal. So this side cancels out because 3d minus 3d is 0. And then over on this side here, 7d, or 7 groups of d, minus 3d, or 3 groups of d, is going to give me 4d, or 4 groups of d. Now what I do is I write out the rest of the equation. So I brought down the 13, and that's equal. I bring down this 7 to 7. So now remember, my goal is to get this variable by itself. So I have 4d minus 13. So I'd like to get this by itself. So if I can get rid of this, that's going to be my next step. So I see it's a minus 13. So to get rid of that, I'd have to add 13, because that would get me to 0. If I have minus 13 plus 13, it gets me to 0. And I do it to both sides again. So now I rewrite what I have. So this cancels out. I'm left with 4d on this side equals 20 over here. And now this is a division problem, 4 times d. So if I want to get d by itself, the opposite of multiplication is dividing. So I'm going to divide this by 4 and this by 4, and my answer is d equals 5. So this one's going to be a little different here. Again, we want to start the same way. We want to get the x to one side or the other. So I can take away 3x, or I could take away 5x. And to me, it seems like this would be easier if I took away 3x from both sides. So that cancels out. Now I'm left with 0 minus 7, or a negative 7 on this side, equals, this would be 2x minus 1. And now again, I want to get this x by itself, so we're going to get rid of this. So the opposite, to get rid of the minus 1, I'm going to add 1. And I'm going to do that to this side. So that cancels out. I'm left with 2x over here. And this is going to equal negative 7 plus 1 is going to equal negative 6. Okay, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And that leaves me with x equals negative 3. The other types of problems you're going to see today are going to be problems that involve parentheses like this. Okay, and when we see a problem like this, this is saying we want to take 3 and times it by what's in these parentheses. So essentially what we're doing is we're going to take 3 times k and then 3 times this plus 2. Okay, a positive 2. So 3 times k is 3k. And now the 3 times a positive 2 is a positive 6. And that's going to equal 6k. Notice I keep writing the problem down. Now I'm going to do just like what I was doing before. I want to get the variable to one side. I'm going to take away 3k from both sides, because that seems like it's the easier route to go. And I'm left with 6 on this side, and on this side I'm left with 3k. And now I just want to get k by itself, So I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides. Okay, and that leaves me with k equals 6 divided by 3 here would be 2.